We walk on a planet littered with ghosts, not the spectral kind, but the echoes of entire worlds that once were, empires that rose, invented, conquered, and worshipped, only to fade into dust and legend. For centuries, we thought of history as a straight line and neat progression from primitive cave dwellers to us, the pinnacle. But what if that's completely wrong? What if history is less a line and more a sprawling, messy web of experiments? Experiments in building society, in understanding the stars, in being human. Ancient civilizations aren't just footnotes. They are alternate versions of ourselves. And their discoveries, pulled from the earth, are forcing us to tear up the old history books and write a new, far more fascinating story. A story where genius emerges in multiple places at once, and where our deepest human urges to build, to write, to worship appear like spontaneous combustion across the globe. Let's start in the place they call the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This is where, we were told, it all began. Writing, the wheel, law codes, organized agriculture. But standing in the shadow of a reconstructed ziggurat, you realize it wasn't just about invention, it was about scale. The Sumerians, and later the Akkadians and Babylonians, weren't just tinkering. They were building the prototype for the modern state. They had to, here, in this fertile but unforgiving land, you needed organization to manage water, to store grain, to marshal labor. Out of sheer necessity, they created bureaucracy. They pressed cuneiform symbols into wet clay to keep track of it all. So many bushels of barley, so many head of cattle, so many days of labor owed to the temple. It was accounting. Birthed from that humble accounting sprang literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh, a tale of friendship, loss, and the search for immortality that still resonates today. Here we find the Code of Hammurabi, a stele of black basalt taller than a man, inscribed with 282 laws. An eye for an eye sounds brutal to us, but in its context, it was a revolutionary attempt to impose standard justice, to replace chaotic vengeance with a known rule. Mesopotamia feels familiar because it's where we see the birth of systems, of paperwork, of a complex, often impersonal machinery that still runs our world. It's the ancient, dusty origin of our modern hustle. But here's where it gets weird. At roughly the same time, over 1,000 miles to the east in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, another civilization was flourishing in the Indus Valley, and they were doing things so differently. It's mind-blowing. We mentioned that city at the start, Mohenjo-Daro, or its sister city Harappa. These people built on a scale that boggles the mind, with standardized brick sizes across an area larger than ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia combined. Their sewer systems and covered drains were more advanced than anything seen in the world for another 3,000 years. They had public baths, like the Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro, which might have been used for ritual purification. But here's the wild part. After a century of excavation, archaeologists have found almost no evidence of colossal palaces, of gigantic temples dwarfing the city, of grand statues of warriors. There's no clear central citadel screaming of a god-king's power. They had wealth, beautiful beads, intricate seals, delicate figurines, but it seems less concentrated. What does this mean? Did the Indus Valley people have a form of governance so different, so perhaps more collective, more focused on civic infrastructure than royal glorification, that it left no monumental ego behind? It's a civilization that seems to have prioritized cleanliness, order, and perhaps social harmony over the celebration of a single ruler. They had writing too, a beautiful, intricate script carved into small stone seals, often next to images of mythical beasts. But it's a script that remains utterly undeciphered, the world's most frustrating locked door. We can't read a single word. So we have to powerhouse civilizations, contemporaries, one shouting its laws and kingly achievements from palace walls, and the other maintaining a mysterious, sufficient, and seemingly egalitarian silence. It completely shatters the idea that civilization has to look one way. It suggests that right from the start, humanity was trying out different answers to the same big question: how do we live together? And then of course there are the masters of time and sky, hidden in the steamy jungles of Central America, the Maya. While Europe was stumbling through its dark ages, Maya astronomers in cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Copine were staring into the heavens and performing mathematical miracles. They calculated the solar year to be 365.2420 days. Our modern Gregorian calendar calculates it as 365.2425. Their number was more accurate. Let that sink in. Without telescopes, without advanced metal tools, they achieved a precision that feels almost supernatural. Their pyramids were not just tombs. They were celestial gateways and giant calendars in stone, precisely aligned with the solstices, the equinoxes, and the cyclical dance of Venus. They developed the concept of zero independently, a leap of abstract thought that eluded the brilliant Romans. Their glyphs, once thought to be mere pictograms, are now known to be a fully fledged writing system, recording history, astronomy, and royal dynasties. But their story holds a dark, cautionary echo that vibrates through the centuries. the Maya transformed a challenging jungle environment into a landscape of awe-inspiring cities, supporting populations in the millions through sophisticated agriculture. And then, during what's called the classic Maya collapse between the 8th and 9th centuries, their civilization experienced a profound unraveling, not a sudden, single catastrophe, but a slow-motion failure where the great ceremonial centers were gradually abandoned to the relentless vines. The leading theory, a devastating mix of prolonged severe drought exacerbated by their own environmental footprint, widespread deforestation, and soil exhaustion from feeding a huge population. They were victims, in part, of their own success. They could predict celestial cycles spanning millennia, but perhaps missed the creeping warnings on the ground. When we look at the Maya, we're not just looking at ancient astronomers. We're looking in a mirror at a society that scaled incredible intellectual and architectural heights and faced ecological consequences that feel uncomfortably, urgently familiar. These discoveries didn't just fall into our laps. They are the rewards of a global detective story that spans centuries, fueled by equal parts scholarship, sweat, and sometimes sheer luck. Think about the early pioneers, like Henry Rawlinson, a British Army officer, literally hanging off a sheer cliff face in Iran at great personal risk to copy the trilingual inscriptions of the Behistun rock. His daring gave us the key. The Rosetta Stone of cuneiform that unlocked the voices of Darius the Great in the entire Mesopotamian world. Or Jean-François Champollion, feverishly comparing the Greek and Egyptian hieroglyphs on the actual Rosetta Stone. His breakthrough, finally piercing the silence of the pharaohs. And don't forget the painstaking work of scholars like Tatiana Proskouriakoff, an architect and artist who stared at Maya glyphs for years until she saw a pattern and everyone else missed not just religious symbols, but historical records, specific dates for the births, accessions, and deaths of specific kings and queens. She didn't just decipher symbols. She restored biography and history to a people whose story was thought to be mere myth. These were the codebreakers of time. Every artifact they and others unearthed is a frozen moment, a direct line to a human mind millennia ago. The Rosetta Stone itself, a mundane tax decree that became the greatest linguistic key in history. The exquisite, almost modern-looking soapstone sculptures from the Indus Valley, like the famous priest king with his serene, inscrutable expression and trefoil-patterned robe. The intricate jade death mask of the Maya king Pakal the Great, a masterpiece of mosaic art that aimed to transform him into the maize god for eternity. A library of thousands of clay tablets from Nineveh, preserving everything from the Epic of Gilgamesh to medical textbooks to omens. These objects are more than art or treasure. They are time capsules of human thought. They force us to confront the profound humanity of people separated from us by thousands of years. They worried about plumbing and taxes. They wrote poetry about love and loss. They studied the stars with obsessive precision. They feared drought and enemies. They celebrated the power of their leaders. They buried their dead with care and ceremony. Their obsessions are our obsessions. The medium is clay and stone instead of digital code, but the message is achingly familiar. But the real, quiet revolution in archaeology isn't just about digging in the dirt anymore. It's happening in clean, white labs and under glowing grids of computer screens. This is the current status of the field, and it's changing everything at a breathtaking pace. Take LiDAR, light detection and ranging. This technology, flown on planes over dense jungle, uses laser pulses to digitally strip away the vegetation canopy. What it has revealed in the Maya world is nothing short of a paradigm shift. The landscape wasn't just dotted with isolated city-states, it was a vast, continuous network of cities, towns, farmsteads, terraces and raised highways, supporting a population far denser than anyone imagined. It's like we had been looking at a map with only a few major capitals marked, and LiDAR just revealed every single road, village, and farm in between. We completely underestimated their scale and interconnectedness. Similarly, ground-penetrating radar is allowing us to be virtual ghosts, walking through buried walls without ever lifting a trowel. It's revealing the outlines of buried Viking longhouses in Norway, the hidden chambers beside Tutankhamun's tomb in Egypt, and the complete street plan of a Roman city lying beneath a farmer's field in England. We're conducting non-invasive CAT scans of the Earth itself. And then there's the magic happening at the molecular level, biomolecular archaeology. Scientists can now analyze the ancient proteins and lipids trapped in the pores of a simple cooking pot and tell you whether it last held fish, stew, barley, beer, or dairy. They can extract trace human DNA from the soil of a cave, floor not from a skeleton, but from microscopic skin cells and bodily fluids that seeped into the ground, and identify which species of human live there. We're reading history written in a grain of pollen that tells us the climate, a trace of animal fat that tells us the diet, a strand of degraded DNA that tells us about disease and migration. The past is beginning to speak a language we never knew it could, a language of chemistry and genetics. So where is this all headed? What does the future of discovering the past look like? You won't believe this, but it's going to get even more scientific. Imagine artificial intelligence not just processing LiDAR data, but trained to spot subtle human-made patterns in satellite imagery that are completely invisible to the human eye, the faint ghost of a wagon road, the circular depression of a forgotten palisade, predicting with uncanny accuracy where to dig. Imagine handheld, portable DNA sequencers at an excavation site, giving a team real-time genetic information about a skeleton's ancestry, sex, and potential diseases before the lunch break is over. Think about virtual and augmented reality reconstructions so accurate, based on terabytes of archaeological and environmental data, that you could put on a headset and literally walk the bustling streets of Mohenjo-Daro at its peak, hear the water rushing in the drains, and look up at buildings restored to their original, brightly colored plaster. But the most profound and necessary shift might be in ethics and collaboration. For too long, archaeology was inextricably tied to colonialism, the story of outsiders extracting treasures for distant museums, often with little regard for the living descendants of those cultures. The future is about partnership. It's about working with, and learning from, indigenous communities. Oral histories, long dismissed as mere legend, are now being recognized as crucial archives of knowledge, used to locate sacred sites, understand ancient land management practices, and interpret artifacts with cultural nuance. It's a partnership where cutting-edge technology and deep traditional knowledge are finally starting a respectful conversation. The goal is evolving. It's no longer just to find and extract, but to understand, preserve, and help reconnect living communities with their ancestral heritage. And here's the crazy cool part. The thought that should keep us all awake with wonder. We've barely scratched the surface. Literally. It's a humbling estimate that less than 10% of the archaeological record has been uncovered. There are entire cities, perhaps even entire civilizations with no mention in any known text, still waiting under the Sahara sands, beneath the Amazon's canopy, or submerged on ancient coastlines drowned by rising seas after the last ice age. The next century will almost certainly reveal societies we have no historical record of whatsoever. Every one of them will be a new chapter in the grand human story, a new answer and a new set of profound questions about who we are and the myriad paths we've walked. We are, in a sense, the memory keepers of our species. These ancient civilizations are not dead. They live on in the foundations of our laws, in the structure of our calendars, in our obsession with building towers that touch the sky, in our fundamental urge to write things down and make our mark. The Mesopotamians gave us the blueprint for the administrative state. The Indus Valley whispers tantalizing secrets about alternative forms of social order that prioritized civic well-being. The Maya teach us breathtaking lessons about astronomical genius and, simultaneously, about ecological fragility. When we uncover a lost city or finally crack a forgotten script, we are not just filling in a blank in a textbook. We are reclaiming a piece of our collective soul. We are being humbled, reminded that our modern, hyperconnected world is not the first great experiment in complexity, and it may not be the last. These ghosts of empires are not just ruins, they are mirrors. They reflect back the incredible things humans can achieve: monumental art, profound science, complex society, and the profound, sometimes catastrophic, ways we can fail. They are a testament to our creativity, our resilience, our endless capacity for wonder, and our recurring blind spots. So the next time you see an unassuming mound in a farmer's field, or a strange geometric pattern on a satellite map, remember, the ground beneath our feet is not just dirt and rock. It is the biggest archive in the world, a library written in stone, pottery, DNA, and bone. We have spent centuries learning how to dig. Now, we are learning how to listen. And the story of humanity, it turns out, is far from over. The most thrilling chapters, the ones that will redefine our past and thus our future, are still buried, waiting for their light.